Okay, Angular Orange here, giving you a tutorial on forms. This is a very high-level view. So basically there's two types of forms. Template-driven forms are fully programmed in the component's template. The template defines the structure of the form. The template defines the format of its fields, and the template defines the validation rules. They're designed for very simple component template form models where you are saying, okay, I'm just going to create a template, and I'm going to take these input fields and pump it to a JSON object on the back end so I could look at the JSON object, do whatever I need to do. So it's really all done on the front end. Reactive forms, you have a form model created programmatically in the code. So it's more like you're creating this TypeScript object, which is kind of sophisticated, more sophisticated with more sophisticated validation. So it's a more complicated, has more capabilities, the reactive form model. The template can be statically defined and bound to an existing model or dynamically generated based on the model. Each type of form set has its own API, that is its own directives and TypeScript classes. I'm pausing because the statement is true, but implicitly what's happening is I interpret it as something a little bit different. Okay, both form types have a model that stores the form data. The model uses Angular Forms module, FormControl, FormGroup, and FormArray. So you have a module called Forms, and that supports that has the Forms module and the reactive Forms module in it, and you have these things called FormControl, FormGroup, and FormArray, and you use those in the model. Okay, template-driven, all directives tell Angular how to implicitly create the form. It's simpler and implicitly uses forms module classes. The form is exported as a JSON value. It's passed to the submit value. Well, the form is passed to the submit value. You can do a dot value on that form and get the JSON value if you want, but it's really the form that's being submitted. But typically we submit the form.value so we get a handle on the JSON value in the back end anyway. Directives are used for validation. When I say that, there's built-in directives like minimum length and maximum length, etc. And there's custom validations you can create with directives. But they're both directives in either case. Okay. Then reactive, you create the model explicitly and then link the HTML template elements to the model. And it's more attractive because it can handle much more complex scenarios. You can test it without a browser. It enables you to explicitly use observables. It's more reactive. Functions are used for validation. You can explicitly use form model classes. So there's a lot more there, but it is more complicated model. Now, I said this implicitly, and I guess I'll say it again. Template-driven forms, all the directives in the template do the validation, map the form fields to the object that's getting submitted, and the validation is all done with directives. So you're really modeling the template and pumping a form object to the back end. Reactive forms are different. You're modeling the backing model object, and then once you have that complicated backing object, then you could create a template and map some of the template fields to that backing object. It's more flexible in a lot of different ways, but not necessarily simplistic. Okay, so explicitly enabling forms. With template driven, you have to import a forms module. Reactive, you have to import the reactive forms module. Okay, I sometimes import both. Not a good idea, but in our applications we do different types of forms, and we use a lot of forms, and therefore you most likely be using both of them. But only use one if you're only using one type of form. So here I'm importing two modules, the forms module, the reactive forms module, from Angular Forms. And then in my annotation from my module, I basically import browser module, forms module, and reactive module.